Dobar dan svima i hvala vam što ste došli na ovu konferenciju koju održava Centar za zastupanje demokratske kulture iz Kosovske Mitrovice. Današnja konferencija je u stvari treća javna rasprava vezana za temu korupcije i borbe protiv korupcije na Kosovu. Ovaj projekat je podržan od strane programa civilnog društva za Albaniju Kosovo koji finansira Ministarstvo spoljnih poslova Norveške, a upravlja Kosovska fondacija za civilno društvo KCSF u partnerstvu sa partner Albanija za promene i razvoj. Eto, čisto da spomenemo ko nas podržava u celom ovom projektu. A naši današnji gosti su Tatjana Lazarević, urednica portala, urednica ili glavna urednica portala KoSSev, Nenad Radosavljević, direktor RTV Mir iz Leposavić i, nažalost, ne uživo, nego preko Zuma nam se javlja, sa nama će biti Darko Dimitrijević, glavni odgovorni urednik Radio Goraždevca i portala Radio Goraždevca. Hteo bih da zahvalim našim gostima što su naši vremena danas, a ova konferencija se održava uživo u naših prostorija, ali možete pratiti i preko Zuma. Zoom aplikacije, takođe obezbeđen je prevod, ako vam treba prevod, znači verujem da smo svi do sad naučili kako se koristi Zoom, gde se uključuje prevod. Ako neko ima problema, može nam se javiti u čatu, pa će mu biti objašnjeno kako da se uključi. Izvinjavam se što malo kasnimo, ali sve ćemo stići na vreme. Kao što sam rekao, današnja tema, kao cela tema ovog projekta, je borba protiv korupcije. Novinarstvo kroz svoj istraživački rad, objektivnost, nepristrasnost, a sve u funkciji ostvarivanja javnog interesa, predstavlja možda i ključnog činioca u suzbijanju korupcije. Jedan od stubova borbe korupcije jesu nezavisni mediji i njihovo objektivno izveštavanje. Kad kažem nezavisni mediji, to je vrlo složen koncept koji radi na ideji da novinari treba da budu slobodni od bilo kakvog mešanja u svoj rad, da mogu da rade svoj posao slobodno i na takav način oni mogu, samo ako ima takav pristup, oni mogu da doprinesu borbi protiv korupcije. Koliko su novinari na Kosovu, a posebno novinari iz srpskih redakcija, sposobni da se uhvate u koštac sa problemom korupcije, kakve rezultate imaju i sa kakvim problemima se sreću, o tome ćemo danas razgovarati na ovom sastanku, na ovoj konferenciji. Pozivam i vas da se uključite u bilo kom trenutku, ako imate neko pitanje, znači ovde uživo ljudi mogu da se jave, preko Zuma možete da se javite, da ga postavite uživo ili možete da napišete svoje pitanje u čatu, pa će ga neko od mojih kolega ovde pročitati. Pa počeo bih sa gospođom Tatjanom Lazarević i da kažemo ovako, postoji, da kažem, treba razlikovati slobodu medija, koji u suštini predstavlja da se pravno ne sprečavaju mediji da rade, od slobode novinarstva ili novinara, koji bi trebalo da predstavljaju ekonomski jake i realno zaštićene novinare koji mogu da rade svoj posao. Koliko su danas novinari na Kosovu slobodni u smislu da imaju mogućnost da istražuju stvari i da su zaštićeni u svom radu?
Hvala Aleksandre na poslednjoj rečenici. To mi je dobar uvod zapravo da kažem ključ. Kad se o novinarima, apropo slobode novinara i spremnosti da izveštavaju o korupciji, nije slika uniformna na Kosovu. Vrlo je važno da se napravi razlika između novinara koji izveštavaju za medije na albanskom jeziku. Nažalost, moram etnički da podelim i redakciju u ovom slučaju na srpskom i drugim nealbanskim jezicima, zato što je potpuno drugačija situacija. Nije nužno bitan taj etnički moment koliko je bitna sistemska razlika. Ja ću da se fokusiram na medije na srpskom jeziku. Oni su u vrlo specifičnom položaju, ne samo u odnosu na albanske redakcije, nego ja bih rekla i na medije širom regiona. Mediji na srpskom ne mogu da budu izdvojeni iz celokupne zajednice. Sad kad pričamo o Srbima na Kosovu, to je zajednica sa veoma, veoma urušenim potencijalima. Kad kažem urušenim potencijalima, počevši od broja preko drugih pokazatelja kao što su socioekonomski, drugi društveni, kulturni, neću da kažem kulturološki, pa do političkog kapaciteta. Trenutno je u političkom smislu zajednica kosovskih Srba potpuno urušena, bez kapaciteta da može da brine o zajednici, o malim zajednicama, o manjim teritorijama i tako dalje. Dakle, to je karakteristično, zapravo ta urušenost kapaciteta se odražava i na srpske medije. Dva ključna problema, pošto nemamo mnogo, jeste ta ekonomska zavisnost. Dakle, mi imamo redakcije na Kosovu koje su urednički nezavisne, barem mogu da govorim 100% urednički nezavisna redakcija, ali naravno da ekonomski zavisimo od međunarodnih grantova u ovom slučaju i to su zapravo grantovi koji u mnogome otežavaju naš, s jedne strane olakšavaju, s druge strane otežavaju jer zapravo prinuđeni smo usled nedostatka te sistemske institucionalne zaštite da zapravo delujemo i kao organizacija civilnog društva u smislu preživljavanja, pisanja projekata, podnošenja projekata i tako dalje, da sada ne zamaram sa tim. Zašto ovo govorim? Ne može novinar ni jedan, nigde da se bavi istraživanjem korupcije, a da ne postoji urednička i finansijska sigurnost. Dakle, baviti se istraživanjem korupcije je veoma skup posao. Ja često to volim...
It's a very expensive job.
Isto tako, ne možete da budete istraživački novinar, a da nemate...
You cannot investigating the journalist. If you cannot be investigative journalist, if you are not...
Nëse nuk keni numër të mjaftueshëm të njerëzve.
I u okviru istraživačkog novinarstva,
if you don't have a stable editorial office, you need to have a sectorial.
Inače, teško uopšte dolazi.
You can come very difficult. I don't want to say any time that we are investigative editor office, and if the media are, if they are independent in work, the media need to be independent in the work to report even for corruption on everywhere. We live in the corruptive society. It's not a characteristic only for Kosovo, it's a global phenomenon. But I will talk only for the Balkan. We live in countries that are kind of a democratic regime, have a democratic regime, but they have a mechanism.
O tome dosta znate, na kraju živimo takve živote. Ja bih ovdje samo htjela da dodam dva elementa. Dakle, sa jedne strane kažem da ne postoje istraživačke redakcije srpske, ja barem ne znam za takve, i sa druge strane čak i mi kao informativne redakcije, ako ste urednički nezavisni, svakodnevno se suočavate sa pritiskom u radu. Ja ću da navedem samo jedan mali pritisak. On za mene je osnovni pokazatelj da i kako postoji korupcija i kriminal, a to je visoka netransparentnost institucije. To su vrlo često, mi to čak i kao frazu kažemo, institucije su netransparentne, u suštini malo toga korektivni faktori rade da bi se to promenilo. Kad kažem korektivni faktor, ne mislim samo na medije, mislim na civilno društvo, mislim čak i na pojedinačne civilne aktiviste, bilo da su to volonteri, bilo da su to oni koji se finansiraju iz grantovima, mislim na javne službenike, u institucijama takođe, mislim na istaknute pojedince, intelektualce, na kraju i na političare. Nama se politika povezuje sa korupcijom i sa kriminalom, nažalost to ne bi trebalo da bude tako, to bi trebalo da bude duboko humanističko zanimanje i nama je to sasvim prihvaćena normalnost da korupciju i kriminal povezujemo za biznise i za političare. Ja se duboko i dan danas sa tim ne slažem, mislim da bi baš biznisi...
Tuha këtë edhe mendoj që bash bizneset dhe politikanët duhet të jenë si
dobrobit. Dakle, kada si kazao da su mediji ključni faktor u izveštavanju o korupciji, odnosno u borbi protiv korupcije, tu bih dopunila da mediji, ali i tekako civilno društvo, nevladine organizacije, ja se danas nalazim u prostoriji jedne nevladine organizacije, ispravite me ako grešim, čiji je posao borba protiv korupcije. Borba protiv korupcije ne podrazumeva samo dobiti projekat od donatora u kojem napišete lepe reči o tome kako se borite protiv korupcije, a rezultati na terenu izostanu. Dakle, novinari ne mogu sami da rade ukoliko ne daju doprinos i ostale branše. Isto tako, korupcija počinje od najnižeg nivoa, da li je to ulični prodavac ili je to šalterski službenik u opštini. Ja ću da se zaustavim ovde, spomenula sam nedostatak transparentnosti i tu ću da se zaustavim to što mi u iskustvu kao redakcija imamo problem već koliko godina postojimo od 2014. godine, najosnovniji problem, a to je da svuda skoro nailazimo na zatvorena vrata. Pa šta god je u pitanju, da li je to samo cenzura, jer se ne znam, neki službenik u opštini, u odeljenju za kulturu ili sport plaši da nam da servisnu informaciju ili je to čelnik Srpske liste zato što neće, jer zapravo nemaju kontrolu nad nama, ili mu je još neko iznad naredio da ne smeju da nam daju informacije, to i tekako ukazuje na sumnju na koruptivne radnje. To nije neukost. Neukost postoji ako nema korektivnog faktora, ali ako postoje korektivni faktori kao što su mediji, kao što su medijska udruženja, kao što su druga esnavska udruženja koja ukazuju na anomalije i na ono što institucije ne rade kako treba, dozvolite da onda ako nailazite na sistemski zatvorena vrata i na visoku netransparentnost, to vam je dobra osnova da imate jaku sumnju da postoji korupcija, da postoji nepotizam, možda kao neki blaži oblik korupcije, da sve do organizovanog kriminala.
Kriminali je organizuar. Faleminderit shumë. Nuk thash se mediat janë të vetme që duhet të
luajnë u borbi protiv korupcije. Korupcija je generalno, kao što ste rekli, sveopšte prisutna i što je najgore, postala je sve više postaje i sveopšte prihvaćena kao neka normalna stvar. Slično pitanje i za vas, Nenade, kolika je spremnost i kolika je sposobnost naših medija da se uhvate u borbu sa tim? Koliko su mediji i ekonomski nezavisni, kao mislim da čuli smo Tatjana da i nisu baš toliko sponzorisani i podržani, da uopšte mogu da uđu u taj proces toliko snažno?
Tanja je sve to lepo ispričala i nemaju tu ja ništa ni dodavao ni oduzimao, ali jedna stvar i kod vas koji vodite ovaj razgovor i kod Tanje jeste nešto što me jako podsjetilo. Interesantno je, ali to je stvarno jedna strašna pojava, da se od medija prosto očekuje maltene ne da otkrije korupciju, nego maltene da uhvati i da privede pravdi. To je neshvatljivo za mene, da svi ti organi, svi ostali delovi sistema, kao policija, pravosuđe, oni se jednostavno, ne znam na koji način su to izbegli, da se uopšte u tom smislu pojave kao odgovorni za to. Oni su ti koji su odgovorni. Pritom je u tim takvim sistemima vrlo teško doći do onoga što je i njihova njihovo izjašnjavanje o eventualnoj korupciji. Dakle, meni je, govorim o pre svega srpskim sredinama, meni je tu jako interesantno da objasnimo kontekst.
Talking about community, Serbian community, it's difficult to talk about that. So, look.
Korupcija je preblaga reč za ono što se nama dešava. Ovo što se nama dešava.
What is happening to us in our community is not, it's more than vulgarity and robbery, but the
Interesantno je kako to, ali je tako. I sada šta se tu dešava? Neki ljudi, obični smrtnici,
what's happening here? The people who are working, producing, from those salaries, the taxes are going to the budget of the municipality of the republic, and then out of the same structure, those incomes or money are returned to the wrong people, who in different ways, firstly, solving their issues, mechanisms for the agriculture and other, and solving their issues, living issues, and every other thing they put in their pockets. So what happens then? It's those that are allocated to the citizens that will make also and in that case, it's horrible. Those people know that they are not clever. They simply know that. They know how to listen and to be bad people. So that happened to us.
Qëllim që të komunikojnë lidhe me korrupsionin apo çfarë
In the corruption, they don't talk or communicate at all. They are isolated. Those are kind of the structures that nothing gets out from those structures and everything stays inside. So more, they have also supervisors that they know that they are not the capacity or direct, they can't work and they didn't work anything at all, starting from the top of the government or even to the local level. They didn't work anything, only that they listened and belong to that kind of system that manage the budget and who can give them a good life. And it's the only goal, it's their only goal. So their supervisors don't let them to show up. Only those well-dictated media that they need, them. So they are isolated people. And now, it's not about the corruption that you can talk about it. They simply don't exist in media at all. In some phases, TV Mir has broadcast the meetings of the assembly, but the time when I made them to accept these kind of things, to broadcast the meetings, then Zubin Potok municipality and Treća, they made the system in that way that exists in the Lazarević too. They meetings and within 5 to 10 minutes. It's simple and clear because they have the majority and they decide what was before that. And only the financial, because of the financial problems and the independency, so they need to accept everything. And those simply are in those kind of position. I don't see a perspective at all of that.
Ni da
I
bi
don't think that financial support will change it because we are deeply in that. It was time when here in the north, the civic sector, media are strong. But that was it was about time, but it doesn't exist anymore. There are political structures that shut down the NGOs, and so are we totally defeated? And I don't see that we can get out from this, and I'm losing the faith that we can get out of it. Thank you for this optimistic view on the things. How much news are there? So I'm not talking only in Kosovo, but how many does media report on corruption? Are those news followed? Are the people reading those news? Because probably every one of you is following who is reading the news, how the public and people are interested in the corruption and news about the corruption. I'll ask also Darko Dimitrijević, who is from Goraždevac. So what's the situation in south of Iber? How much are your media reporting regarding the corruption, and are those news followed out by the readers and the viewers? First of all, I want to apologize, and I'm very sorry that I cannot be there with you today physically, but only through the Zoom. I listened what my colleagues said, and I can say that I make one step further, that everything that we heard till now talks about only one fact. So it's our society in which we are living here in Kosovo, and maybe on all of the West Balkan is the corruptive society and very corruptive. The lack of awareness regarding the corruption is low. So we're lacking the awareness and everything that is regarding that needs to be clean. Money laundering, in fact, it's a normal thing that is happening here. And we say corruptive society, I say that all our society is corrupted. You mentioned politics, I mentioned also the judicial system, NGOs, also media, journalists. Also, when we also is corrupted. So all our life is surrounded by the corruption. I say that
Deri sa ekzistojnë individ të tillë të cilët do të merr
exist the individuals that will mention the corruption, that will identify the corruption and mention the standards regarding the development of the society. There is a hope, but corruption is everywhere. I know that the cases when we talk about the politics and especially Belgrade tabloids from Belgrade were participating. About the journalists received a lot of money from the representatives and the mayors from the Serbian municipalities to write about them 2 times per month. And how can we fight the corruption? How to fight the corruption in NGO sector? It's very defeatable results. And what's in the system is also defeated because it's the most corrupted system. And when the system is corrupted, then you have those that need to identify those corruption, and it's a big problem to fight against that in any kind of level with that kind of corruption. And regarding your last question, I think that I agree with Tanya. There is no research editor office in Kosovo, but there are time to time reports our reports when we talk about those problems, I think, or reporting about those problems, so we can see those issues in every Serbian village, and so it's the biggest problem why we are living in this way that we're living today. But the tolerance on that kind of on that type of corruption is big from the citizens, and then we need to impact on that. But it is a very slow process. And when you mentioned the corruption, so there is we published the news regarding the health issues in the Skenderaj or Srbica, but and the system from Belgrade organized and reporting and only to, how to say, to explain that kind of corruption, I can say. And please, Tanya, correct me if I mistaken the dates and when was building the kindergarten in Goraždevac together with portal KoSSev. When we have this kind of a corruption and this level of corruption, doesn't mean it's about the Kosovo system or the system of the Republic of Serbia, of the government of Serbia. Both systems are corrupted as well. And what happens with the North Mitrovica or the municipalities in the north that are bigger, or the majority of Serbian municipalities, we only can say that need to fight those are or passive, they don't want to react regarding that, or simply are part of that corrupted system. We, during 2021, before the elections, and the calls for the NGOs in the Serbian municipalities within Kosovo, with the Serbian majority municipalities, with astronomical numbers, 400, 500,000 euros that are, yes. It's a small society here. Everybody knows each other. Only one editor office, I think, in Gračanica mentioned that problem of the tenders. So I'm not blaming our media. I said that we cannot, from those financial means, solve our problems that we have. So we cannot make the editor office that will deal only with those phenomena, but we need to work in that direction and to impact, to change the awareness of citizens, and simply the biggest level of corruption is though it's certainty is, so we need to work on that. I'm not a pessimist, but it's a slow process that will last for long. Thank you, Darko. Because if you're not with us in any time, you can just add something or be full? Tanya, do you want to add something? As mentioned by Darko, it's not all everything black, but it's true. Even we have some independent editorial office, they can report about the subject of the corruption or topic of the corruption. So we sometimes we're doing that rarely, and maybe those reporting, and I'm so impressed that we also reported about that, but only technically to explain why it's important that the editorial office to be. It's not this, I don't want to say sport, but it's very important job that we have. Since everybody's media, so everyone has a Facebook page, Twitter page, social media are playing huge role. And they are also kind of alternative channels in the fight against the corruption. I'm not the one who is criticizing the social media or so-called individuals, how my colleagues say are playing journalism and with journalism and are destroying it, but they are necessary. And on the other hand, since they are brave to post everything regarding the corruption, there are different people that or individuals that have problems and they talk about it. So not entering in the motives and talking about motives, they are brave to publish the names and data. So maybe you can read more on the and social media and you can see more information and data on the social media than you can see maybe on the on other media, public media. When we are people all used to ask why we are not talking about corruption when I see that one is interested to listen my answer, then I answer, but people just ask that and they are not interested to hear our answer. But in any case, why it's important to have the editorial office that deals only with that, but its program is the most difficult part of the job. But when you receive a reporting regarding corruption and you are ready to do the investigation, is the easiest part. Everything before that is it's very difficult and it's risky. First of all, I'm talking about the safety of data. You not medicine again. You're not talking only and writing about the people that you're writing about, but you're talking about the people too. When you write about the corruption, when you're reporting about the corruption and the crime, you need to discuss with the collaborators and to compare the documents and data. And the closed societies, it's our eyes, us that we are talking about the lack of transparency. And when you see the corruption, and we would like to talk about that and write about that one, and then when me as an editor, I make the report how many researchers I need about the story, and then I gave up because maybe I cannot achieve that. But they think because they know it is important. Look, we regularly receive anonymous letters. Sometimes they are not, they are examples of corruption, and they expect from us to write about that, but they are and those who gave us the information are staying behind that. When we need to, in my editorial office, I need also the proofs in case that somebody press charges against me. So I need to have all the proofs and the voice and everything for all the corruption, for the case of corruption that I received, or the information I have received about the case. And also I have a case also for regarding the mayor in the north. In that period, anyone on media didn't publish that, and it was only us that published that. And before I woke up, one of local televisions not only published that the KoSSev published the untruth, fake story. This is and the person was under the pressure and changed the declaration. So it's very important that, and only when we are sure about that, is it a document or the voice, or did we publish that? So it's another thing that I want to mention is that when media report on corruption, it is very important collaboration with public, with the citizen. I have positive and negative experience. When you talk about that, the most things that I was facing when citizens talk about the corruption, and I mean institutions and public institutions, they have usually personal motive. They lost a job, or it's maybe going to get fired or something like that. So they use media to publish the corruption or to publish that. It is very important to understand the motive of that, who is giving you information, or are those information true. So I have another also example. We had one officer who was very important person. Who didn't want to give a declaration or to, and slowly he approached to us, and when he wanted to give a resignation, he then started to feed us with a different kind of information regarding the corruption. I asked him to talk publicly, but he didn't understand. We didn't write nothing about that. And when he was we faced issues with other institutions that understood that we are talking to write about that, and they just didn't stop to talk to us. And they are giving us a whole document, government document, that where things are explained why this person is fired or need to be fired or is fired. And when the institutions is behind the documents, okay, please publish this document, but without us. So you are in dilemma what to do. You don't have a kind of interest to do that, but we work in the interest of the public. So we published the document. It was the document sent by the government to us, what's valid document. So I want to say that those motives, when you talk about the corruption, very questionable, but it's important to check all of this. But also another mine experience with other editorial authors, maybe there someone has another examples, but also the big editorial office receive informations from the informators who want to work against another party. The best examples, loads of issues about Jovanjica or Krušika, and who is following those cases. They are huge corruption cases. In fact, did nothing happen about that? It's very important questions, colloquial question, who was responsible and who sent to journalists. So it's not fault of the editorial office, but they receive information about these big cases that someone is giving to them, and we received a lot of kind of things like that, different regarding different cases, but we are rejecting those. It's not that we are rejecting, but it's a very serious job, and it's very serious work has to be done in order to that. So I have to deal with political issues. Tachi said, Kurti said that, Vučić said that, and we don't have time to do also that. You mentioned some cases when a journalist had reported about the corruption. There were some reactions and changes regarding that in health sector. Then in kindergarten in Goraždevac started to work after the reaction. Then the municipality of Gračanica did not allocated the money and everything, something like that. Every time a media makes some reporting or reaction, then we can have results. Money is not necessary, you said, but what is necessary or what is needed? Tanya gave us a course how to publish the news, but do we need to train the journalist, or they know how to do it? Do someone need to explain to those journalists how to report and how to publish the news? So what we can do in that way for the specific editorial offices, so not in order to media to talk about more or write about more corruption. First of all, I'm talking about media, Serbian media and Kosovo. In our situation to fight the use of media in fight against the corruption, we cannot be even the independent media. We cannot reach that financially independent. It's interesting, for example, you here invited me, Tatjana, KoSSev, and Darko from Goraždevac, and I think you tried to invite all of us, but it's very interesting why you invited us in this meeting. Why did you invite to the others that are not independent, that are dependent financially? Because also you cannot reach them as the politicals that are governing them. They are not reachable. You cannot reach them. And look, they are not under the impact of political persons or figures or something, but they are part of the system. Of that system who are sending the whole people in the disaster. It's working in that field. And Goraždevac also has some good reporting. But so I rank them. Then it's going, KoSSev is first, then Goraždevac, then Kim is third. Kim is real about everything that is publishing or showing, broadcasting. It's independent, and this is very important, but we are not all of us are independent. A lot of other media are under the influence or under the impact of others. So you cannot do anything about that. You can give a donation, we can live for a period with that, but system is problem, general system in the society. When it's changed, then you can change also the fight against the corruption. I know that only one Albanian media in Kosovo, I'm not sure how it's called, who is independent, I can say. I know just one. I met those people. They are also a portal. Maybe Inside Dairy or Calzo, I don't know. I met with them. I followed them a lot for a long time. And look, there are some media that also are strong media. I want to say strong media in any way, financially, they are strong. And then we say, Tatjana. We try to make some TV shows with that to say what they think about ecological issues and to make that in that way to interview Roma in one neighborhood how they are living, and another one who can say from the government, and we couldn't make that. We have 4 contacts, so we did. One was from one from last one minister. We couldn't make them to talk about that kind of issue, because or an ecological problem. We couldn't reach them. Those kind of people from other party. Only those from we had ours, Professor Čiki Ćorac, Milan Barać, and other that are included in the ecological or environmental issues. It was a joint program with BIRN and our television. So then undertaken the responsibility to do that. And they made that for 2 days. They did that for 2 days. They don't have the support of politicians, but they are strong in things that they are doing because they are financially very strong. It's not a cheap sport, as Tanya mentioned. So they are very strong media. So political structure are afraid from them, are afraid of what will they report. So to achieve, for us to achieve that, it's a very long way to make. But when if the system will be changed, then everything will be different. If I can add something regarding this thing, of course. First of all, in order to identify a level of corruption, Tanya explained perfectly how that functions in the editorial office, and I agree fully with her. But there's one very important thing that is in which I also had. We had engagement citizen reporting narrative, and it includes citizen regarding one app or something that or tool that the citizen can report about the corruption or the case of corruption. And any kind of identification or corruption from the media or the institutions or people who are within the system. So in this situation that we have right now exists a big problem. And the problem that mentioned Nena, there is lack of communication between us. You have some other media there. You have Serbian community, intellectual community that within it's where are the professors of the universities, where are today directors of the gymnasium, of the schools. So when there is a problem in any democratic society, you have that intellectual circle that are talking about that or fighting about that. So people are now more working about how to they are very quiet. So I can say the Serbians in Kosovo have their opinion and stances that even Pristina or Belgrade doesn't like it. We know how this everything is function in the judicial system, how the regarding the property issues, and then don't make me talk about other things. So simply Belgrade wants the Serbians have their stance, Belgrade stance, so then their Belgrade opinion. So it's why Petar Petković wouldn't be for Serbian from Gračanica, Điljan, Štrpce or Leposavić. It will be, he will know better things than someone who is coming from Novi Sad or Belgrade or who maybe couldn't find the locations without the driver here in Kosovo. So it is a big problem.
koji opet uz medije mora da bude nosioc progresa, određenog progresa u društvu i toga danas nema.
Opposing their opinion, so it's very difficult for Serbs in Kosovo, and that precondition need to be to identify all the actions and phenomena, and without the lack of the communication between different structures, so we don't have a communication at all between us. So it is very risky and very bad thing. And first of all, is going against the victims of the corruption, who represents the victim of the corrupted system, and they are not aware about that, or they didn't know about that they are victims. I only want to say that on this conference, Kontakt Radio was also invited, but they said they had some obligation, had some things to do with it, or it's not that they didn't want to participate in this conference, but they couldn't. We invited those media because they for the job they are doing and what they're dealing with, talking about, writing about, reporting about. So I want to ask you also for the other media, how much or does self-censorship is self-censorship present, and is there a corruption between the media or in the media, within the media, to buy the story, to order the story, to say something that is not true only, or to write about something that is not true only because someone wants that to be published or something like that? But everyone can answer. Feel free, because it's general question. One of the part of corruption, a form of corruption, when the government pays you, that's corruption. Functionaries who are governing the government, they expect from you to report about them, about their work, and how they want. That's happening. Media who receive salaries from the government or the state cannot be dependent and simply cannot fight or work against corruption, so, or report about corruption. It's a self-censorship also issue. There are some media who still have the people one-party system. So those people have a self-censorship. They are part of that kind of system, and they cannot think differently. But there are a lot of journalists or the people who became journalists recently, but are afraid. It's a big number of people, but also there are people in life that are not afraid, that are brave. But there are a small number of that. I know in Leposavić exists only 2 people like that who can talk about or against, in fact, talk about against the government in Serbia. There are only 2 people. Does anybody else know who can publicly publicly say everything that we mean? And so these kind of people you have in between the journalists. So journalists can talk and think freely that everyone has some kind of interest for aunt, for a brother, for sister, or for uncle. I can understand those people, but simply it's not good that those kind of people, because we are majority, huge majorities like that, and always because at the end are have like the interest of the governing structures, personal structures for regarding the good life or something like that. That's why. So I believe that everything that will have new Che Guevaras in journalism. If I can add, can I give my comment? I think that so if someone is giving the salary, doesn't mean that he needs to listen to him 100%. It doesn't mean only the paying. Only I need to give it Tanya the word because she's in hurry. Darko, I'm sorry because I need to leave in a couple of minutes. Not to correct you, just to translate exactly. That you are receiving the salary from the government is not a sign of corruption. Where's that luck that those who receive the government salary are have awareness regarding those salaries, and the salaries that we are receiving, the people receive from Belgrade, are big. So for those 8 hours, somebody needs to do. The people who receive those salaries need to do his job. Salaries of the health workers or the educators, and it's not enough. You're receiving like 1,000 euro approximately. So everyone in his job need to give more than what he's giving. Then we will have less problems, or maybe we will have a problem at all. Because for 22 years, if everyone worked and done its job, doesn't mean if it's in healthcare or it's on every other field, we'll not talk about the corruption, but we will talk about know-how, and we will give the experience and help other people or the cities. Only I want to correct that. And this regarding the fear. People need to be feared only if they say lie, and when they talk about the truth, and this truth need to has a proof. So it's very important for your personal sense or But look, when you're in professional media, serious media, that is not necessary. But when you see something that and you don't have the argument or the proof that you can, and to conclude now, just regardless who's giving you money, but with financial dependence, if you are financially dependable, you cannot be independent editorial office. And I can say that our portal is totally independent, and I can. It is good if media to have self-censorship, but and especially when you use government resources, you need to be independent. And there are the media who are editorial office that are not independent. A media can exist at TV from a political party, business groups, newspapers, or political newspapers, so it's legal, but only need to be regulated with laws, and to see which media you are getting informed, from which media you are getting informed. That exists in USA. Only maybe you can take example from democratic and Republican television. So it's okay if you go to the television who is paid by Srpska napredna stranka or Demokratska stranka or another party, and you can get informed from that, but you need to know which kind of media you are visiting and what to expect from media. Because since Tanya is leaving, okay, I'll add something. Talked about something that, okay, it's like, there's some project or a car or something. It's cheap, but you have a lot of it. The same as Tanya saying, people who are receiving salaries from Belgrade, and they need to work to be independent. That will be like, it will be good if it's like that, but that is not happening, Tanya. It will be good that it's a problem. I know. It's good when the donators can hear about that, but that doesn't exist. Okay, Darko, what do you have to say? Because Darko was trying 2 times to add something. Darko, I also wanted to say something about salaries. I don't have a problem with that. Somebody is receiving the salary from Belgrade or Pristina. But the issue of everything is that when those salaries are perception of those who are receiving those salaries and who are receiving someone from, doesn't mean is that the mayor or the president of the country or the state. The problem or the issue is the perception, the awareness that the salary is not something that is given from the state, but something that you're working for. And this is the issue, because it's making self-regulation from the couple of people that are under those budgets. And another thing I'll mention, the issue of the media funds for the media. The fund that's not existing anymore for the non-majority media. So the government is contracts for the employees in the government are now for 3 to 6 or maybe 1 year period. So it's a simple example of how corruptively the government is behaving, and they need to talk about this system, and they need to report about this system and this issue. So it's characteristic about our system. It's not directly related to media, but for the whole system. And when we're talking about those salaries, is that we are in situation in Kosovo where we receive system of double salaries. So it's not a secret that in many schools in Kosovo, teachers are receiving salaries from the government of Serbia and the Ministry in government of Kosovo. So also the same thing is for the healthcare, which is a way of corruption. That's also another case of corruption is when someone is in list for the salaries, but he's not working, and this is corruption also. And to get back to the question that we almost forgot with dialogue and debate regarding salaries, we in our editorial office didn't have any problem to publish something that was established, and as Nana said in the beginning, we don't have to say something against someone, but it's important to say the truth. The truth is an issue when we are talking about fight against the corruption. It is very important to report or talk, to tell the truth. Till now, we didn't make big mistakes. Maybe we had some small mistakes in our text that we have published or stories that we have published, and we have fixed it immediately. But it's very important in that way to prove the facts, prove the information that before the publication, in order not to get in this kind of situation, but with self-regulation.
Gjithashtu kemi problem
Send something or to publish something or to report about something. We didn't have that kind of issue. Maybe I don't like the information personally, or someone in our office doesn't like the story, and someone say, okay, maybe it's not like this, but we have the situation like it is, and that self-regulation it's not necessary to exist, especially in those media who are financed through the grants or the public calls, and the media that had the debates that are financed by the government. Thank you, Darko. Another question for you. You're very active in this journalist association. How those association can help in this process, or can they help, in fact? It's a question for me, right? Yeah. Look, associations generally make different profiles of people. And I think that journalists, maybe me before a week or two, was leading the journalist association, and it was very good thing that I had the opportunity to collaborate with different people, but sometimes it is difficult to coordinate all the stances, all the opinions, and everything that one association has to do. The work of an association is not the same as the work of the media organization. In associations, you are dealing more with ethics profession, and in that way you can identify the work of editorial office, the self-regulation, media standards, frameworks, and everything. And you cannot talk. There's no space to talk about the things that are not dealing with media or doesn't. It's very important about the credibility of the journalists, and those associations are working on integrity and can protect the integrity and the journalists from different kind of attacks on journalists and everything that threatens the work of the journalist. I come on that association for a couple of months, and I hopefully those will be done also in the proper way in the future from other leader of the association, if I can say it like that. In one way, it has to be reformed. To undergo to the reforms, we have also the association who gathers all the reporters and journalists on Serbian language. You have the Journalist Association of Kosovo, and the journalists need to collaborate and cooperate within those association and to identify ethics standards and principles that need to be better than it's or not, even if we are reporting of ethnic issues or political issues, but those principles and standards are not existing today, but we need to establish them as far as possible. Do maybe we have a question on Zoom or something? I have one more question, concrete question. Information that institutions need to give, they exist. If you ask for them and they need to give you this information, in fact, they have to give you those information on the request to publish. Does this on Kosovo functions, and did you try to ask this kind of information maybe? Omer Karabek was one of my colleagues in the emission, in the TV show on most that he is.
Slobodna Evropa. Kaže, ja bih sada završio ovaj razgovor, tako on završava razgovor. Tako ja sam...
Okay, let's mention that, look, you receive some kind of information, but for example, if you cannot, you don't know, if you cannot have information about something that was built or everything, they simply don't want to give you those kind of information, and that's all. Simply the main information. Look, in dictatorial regimes, everyone is working for one person, and if that one on the top won't let those information are public or gave those information, he can say, okay, do that if I'm saying to do it. It's a problem of the system. In one happy period that we had in Serbia for a short period, maybe 2 years, when Zoran Đinđić was on the top, they had a vision and idea to change the system. Everybody worked on that, more engaged on that. But that was very good period, and they couldn't change the system, but they only changed the people, hoping to change the system. But no, they didn't change the system. They only changed the people. Without changing the system, nothing is possible. You cannot expect a lot of things to happen. I thought more for this local system. That is the system functioning here. Is in Kosovo established a system who can do, but something has been done regarding the principles of Europe. when the foreigners come here came in Kosovo, but some steps were made in a good way, and I think that they and thus feel they will show better results in the future, I believe. I know many cases that people asked and received from that. Every own information they have asked for or requested for, and they received. And this how you function in the Serbian community when is there any possibility to receive the information, for example, from the municipality? Did you get any kind of information? We, with the municipality and local level, had positive experience. We asked for the documents and the land for the one returning, and we received the whole documents that were necessary from that was sent to the Ministry of Local Self-Governance. So it's positive example and positive experience, but generally I cannot say that it's a good situation, because we had it happened that we asked for reports or declarations, and we have a barrier. I will mention also the barrier problem. It's a language also, because language is very huge problem here. And very often it represents an issue when someone from those high levels talking a policy, Kosovo police, when we talk about the traffic issues, it was very difficult to gain the declaration from the commander from police in Peja. It's very important information, and not to talk, to go further and talk about the problems that are coming from the top, from the government. We have a problem also that the Prime Minister, President of Kosovo still haven't been in Serbian media in Kosovo, so it's sending a message that is bad for the whole society. It's not that we call them. I know that we call them. I know that maybe 3 or 4 editorial office, that they invited them to participate in TV shows or to invite them to address the citizens, but I think it's not a good relation regarding the public and regarding the information. I will finish with this. The language, it's a lack of political will from the President of Kosovo and the Prime Minister of Kosovo and the people on the high levels to address media on the Serbian media. It's a very big issue and a big problem. Thank you, Darko. And we'll conclude with this. If we don't have any question and we don't have a question on Zoom, I would like to conclude this debate, public debate, or the conference, and with one kind of conclusion. We know that the corruption exists. We know how that it has a network, and it's a kind of a normal phenomena that is happening. And I agree with that we need to change the system, but also with the small things we can maybe make a system to change. organize this conference to talk about that. That's why we invited the people that has to say something regarding the fight against the corruption, and not to be completely negative. I think there are some results when media are reporting on corruption. They are they are receiving the reaction from the institutions. So that's why we need to work about that and to fight against the corruption. We as ACDC promised that we'll continue to work on that, and we'll give all the best to give the opportunity to people or to identify the corruption and to fight against this phenomena and the evil that is eating every one of us. So can you imagine how the life will be good here if there is no corruption? But unfortunately, we have the corruption everywhere, and what we can do is that we can maybe achieve something. Thank you, Darko, and thank you everyone that participated in it. Thank you, Darko, that even you had the health issues were present online. Thank you, Nenad, that always answer on our thanks to everyone here and everyone on Zoom, and hopefully we will talk about other subjects that we are dealing with. Thank you again. Thank you to the translator and interpreters for the translation.